English Bible, Luke chapter 13, Common English Bible. At that time, some who were present on that occasion told Jesus about the Galileans whom Pilate had killed while they were offering sacrifices. He said to them, "Do you think these suffering of these Galileans?" He said, "Do you think the suffering of these Galileans proves that they were more sinful than all the other Galileans? No, I tell you. But unless you change your hearts and lives, you'll die just as they did. What about those 12 people who were killed when the Tower of Siloam fell on them? Do you think that they were more guilty of wrongdoing than everyone else who lived in Jerusalem? No, I tell you, but unless you change your hearts and lives, you'll die just as they did." Jesus told them a parable. A certain man owned a fig tree planted in a vineyard. He came looking for fruit on it and found none. He said to his gardener, "Look, I've come looking for fruit on this fig tree for the past 3 years, and I've never found any. Cut it down. Why should it continue depleting the soil's nutrients?" The gardener responded, "Lord, give it 1 more year and I'll dig around it and give it fertilizer. Maybe it will produce fruit next year. If not, then you can cut it down." Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. A woman was there who had been disabled by a spirit for 18 years. She was bent over and couldn't stand up straight. When he saw her, the Lord called her to him and said, "Woman, you're set free from your sickness." He placed his hands on her and she straightened up at once and praised God. The synagogue leader, incensed that Jesus had healed on the Sabbath, said, "There are 6 days during which work is permitted. Come and be healed on those days and not on the Sabbath day." The Lord replied, "Hypocrites, don't each of you on the Sabbath untie your ox or donkey from its stall and lead it out to get a drink? Then isn't it necessary that this woman, a daughter of Abraham, bound by Satan for 18 long years, be set free from her bondage on the Sabbath day?" When he said these things, all his opponents were put to shame, but all those in the crowd rejoiced at all the extraordinary things he was doing. Jesus asked, "What is God's kingdom like? To what can I compare it? It's like a woman. It's like someone who took a mustard seed and planted it in a vineyard. It's like a mustard seed that someone took and planted in a vineyard. It grew and developed into a tree, and the birds of the sky nested in its branches." Again, he said, "To what can I compare God's kingdom? It's like yeast, which a woman took and hid in a bushel of wheat flour until the yeast had worked its way through the hole." Until the yeast had worked its way through the hole. Until the yeast had worked its way through the hole. What am I saying? Until the yeast had worked its way through the hole. Jesus traveled around cities and villages, preaching and proclaiming the good news of teaching and making his way to Jerusalem. Someone asked him, "Lord, will only a few be saved?" He said to them, "Make every effort to enter through the narrow gate. Many, I tell you, will try to enter and won't be able to. Once the owner of the house gets up and shuts the door, then you'll stand outside and knock on the door, saying, 'Lord, open the door for us.' He will reply, 'I don't know you or where you're from.' Then you'll begin to say, 'We ate and drank in your presence and you taught in our streets.' He'll respond, 'I don't know you or where you are from. Go away from me, all you evildoers.' There will be weeping and grinding of teeth when you see Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all the prophets in God's kingdom, but you yourselves will be thrown out. People will come from east and west, north and south, and sit down to eat in God's kingdom. Look, those who are last will be first, and those who are first will be last." At that time, some Pharisees approached Jesus. "Teacher, go away from here because Herod wants to kill you." He said to them, "Go tell that fox, look, I'm throwing out demons and healing people today and tomorrow, and on the 3rd day I will complete my work. However, it's necessary for me to travel today, tomorrow, and the next day, because it's impossible for a prophet to be killed outside of Jerusalem." Jerusalem, Jerusalem, You who kill the prophets and stone those who are sent to you. How often I've wanted to take you up in my arms, take your children up in my arms, but you weren't willing. Look, your house is abandoned. I tell you, you won't see me until the time comes when you say, blessings on the one who comes in the Lord's name. One Sabbath, as Jesus went to share a meal in the home of one of the leaders of the Pharisees, they were watching him closely. A man was there suffering from an abnormal swelling of the body. Jesus asked the lawyers and Pharisees, does the law allow healing on the Sabbath or not? But they said nothing. He took the man, healed him. He took hold of the man, healed him, then let him go. He said to them, suppose your child or ox fell into a ditch on the Sabbath day. Wouldn't you immediately pull it out? But they had no response. When Jesus noticed how the guests sought out the best seats at the table, he told them a parable. When someone invites you to a wedding celebration, don't take your seat in the place of honor. Someone more highly regarded than you could have been invited by your host. The host who invited both of you will come and say to you, friend, give your seat to this other person. Embarrassed, you'll take your seat in the least important place. Instead, when you receive an invitation, go and sit in the least important place. And the host who approaches you, when your host approaches you, you'll say, friend, move up here to a better seat. All who lift themselves up will become low, will be brought low, and all who lift themselves up will be brought low, and those who make themselves low will be lifted up. Jesus also said to the person who had invited him, when you host a lunch or dinner, don't invite your friends, your brothers and sisters, your relatives, or rich neighbors. If you do, they will invite you in return, and that will be your reward. Instead, when you give an invitation, when you give a banquet, invite the poor, crippled, lame, and blind, and you'll be blessed because they can't repay you. Instead, you'll be blessed when the just are resurrected. When one of the dinner guests heard Jesus' remarks, he said to Jesus, happy are those who will feast in God's kingdom. Jesus replied, a certain man hosted a large dinner and invited many people. When it was time for the dinner to begin, he sent his servant to tell the invited guests, come, the dinner is now ready. One by one, they all began to make excuses. The first one told him, I bought a farm and must go and see it. Please excuse me. Another said, I bought 5 teams of oxen. I'm going to check on them. Please excuse me. Another said, I just got married, so I can't come. When he returned, the servant reported these excuses to his master. The master of the house became angry and said to his servant, quick, go out into the streets of the city, the main streets. He became angry and said to the servant, go quickly to the city streets, the busy ones and the side streets, and bring the poor, crippled, blind, and lame. The servant replied, Master, your instructions have been followed, and there is still room. The master said to the servant, go to the highways and back alleys and urge people to come in so that my house will be filled. I assure you, not one of those who are invited will taste my dinner. Large crowds were traveling with Jesus. Turning to them, he said, whoever wants to come after me must say no to them. Whoever comes to me and doesn't hate his father and mother, spouse and children, and brothers and sisters, yes, even one's own life, cannot be my disciple. Whoever comes to me and doesn't take up his cross and follow me whoever doesn't take up his cross and follow me cannot follow. Whoever comes to me and must take up his cross, deny himself, and follow me, something like that. Jesus said to them, he told them a parable. I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but I'm freewheeling here a little bit. Whoever comes to me and doesn't take up his cross and follow me, whoever comes to me must say no to themselves, take up their cross daily, and follow me. Yeah,